Dear listeners, did you know that over 80% of Canadians rely on cars for daily commuting?
Almost 40% of Canadians are really thinking about letting go of their cars.
Studies show that 60% of millennials now prefer flexible car ownership options over traditional models.
The more feedback you get, the more people you meet, the better you'll be able to package what you're trying to sell out there.
Welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast, where we bring you the stories, insights, and strategies shaping Canada's vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem. I'm your host, Kripa Anand, and today we're diving into a revolutionary approach to mobility that's challenging traditional car ownership. Joining us today is Apoorv Gupta, a visionary entrepreneur and the founder of Roam, a fast-growing car subscription service redefining how Canadians access vehicles. Apoorv graduated from Ivy Business School with a specialization in economics and has co-founded multiple ventures, including BrainStation, a global leader in digital skills training. From launching one of Latin America's largest vehicle subscription services to scaling Roam in Ontario, Apoorv has consistently pushed the boundaries of innovation in mobility. Tune in to hear Apoorv's insight into the future of transportation and how Roam is simplifying car ownership for consumers and businesses alike. Apoorv, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. So first of all, wishing you a very happy new year.
Yeah,
It's
same to
just
you.
the first month of the year. How's it been so far for you?
It's been great. I mean, whenever New Year starts off, we all have aspirations. And, with Rome, we're very excited about this year. We have a lot of new products coming out. And luckily, we're out of the 3 or 4 year, auto industry has been a really weird spot over the last 3 to 4 years. So I think this is going to be the first year where things will normalize quite a lot. So we're very excited about it.
Perfect. Let's start by reimagining transportation. So transportation, as we all realize, is the backbone of the modern life today. And the way we access vehicles, it's rapidly changing. Now, Apoorv, how do you envision the future of mobility evolving? And what role specifically does Rome play in shaping it?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the global mobility landscape, right? I grew up watching a show called Jetsons, right? You had those
Right.
flying cars in cities, and you always imagine at some point we're going to get there, right? So, I mean, we all hear in the news that there's, autonomous vehicles coming out or cars that can go in the water or fly, flying cars. Very far away from that overall. But the main pattern here is that we're going to see in the coming decade a decline in asset ownership, right? And there's a few things driving that. So the first thing is, if you look at globally, there's about 1.3 billion vehicles on the road, right? That's a lot of cars.
Yeah, that's a crazy number. Yeah.
It's a crazy number, right? And about 45% of those are essentially being driven by privately, so by consumers, right? And the challenge with that is it's unsustainable because if everyone decides to own a vehicle, first of all, it has a huge impact on infrastructure, right? Governments have to continue maintaining parkings, building roadways and highways. Right. I think there's this crazy stat about the US and a few countries where in the States, it's 900 out of per 1,000 individuals, there's a car. Right.
Wow.
So there's 900 vehicles per 1,000 people. Like if you think about that, it's crazy. Right. So number one, it's not sustainable. And then the second thing is we're seeing and because of the sustainability, we're also seeing a big push worldwide where globally, like transportation makes up about 30% of the emissions. Right. And majority of that's actually coming from public transportation. So when you look at these two, the burden on infrastructure and the emissions, there's a very big push for worldwide, like governments have mandates where they're either pushing new regulations into place where, they don't want as many cars in the city. So just last month, New York just came out with a law where they're charging for cars entering Manhattan. Right. So regulations like these, what happens is it drives cars on the road. Like people will prefer not to have cars. So it's indirectly these policies are causing ownership to go on a downward trend over the next decade. And then you're also seeing a big push towards EVs, right? There's so many EV mandates.
Yeah.
Funny enough, Canada just ended their Eyes Up credits just 2 weeks ago,
Right.
which means that as a consumer now, if you want to go buy an electric vehicle, you're not getting that it was $5,000 for certain vehicles. That's been eliminated, but that was there again to make a big push towards sustainable transportation.
Right. So that people make that choice, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So overall, what you're seeing is all the regulations is focusing on getting and having less cars on the road.
Right.
And then the third, kind of pillar of this is autonomous vehicles, right? We're seeing there's a company in the States called it's Waymo, right? It's a driverless cab. So right, just like last month in December, they released their stats. They've now surpassed Uber and Lyft on the road. These are completely driverless taxis on the road. And it took Uber and Lyft a good decade to establish their market positioning. I'm talking about San Francisco, by the way, right?
Yeah.
And Waymo came in. They've been in development for a while, but since they've launched, they have the same market share as Lyft, and they're catching up with Uber. So autonomous vehicles are on the horizon. It's going to be a while before they're in the hands of regular consumers. But again, when you look at all these things combined, there's a big shift where consumers are just going to have a lot of choice. Right?
Definitely, yeah.
McKinsey did this big survey from all the households in the States. And I'm using the States because usually they lead in all these trends, right? 1/3 of the individuals are moving towards sustainable solutions, right? So whether that's ride sharing, micromobility, like electric scooters, right? And about half of them are actually now considering if car ownership is the right decision for them. So we're now heading into this very interesting decade where people are going to question, like, should I have a car in my driveway? Does it make sense? So that's where we personally, the Rome team, we believe that that's where we really come in, right? If you look at the current market, there's car rentals, right? So there's a lot of short-term options. You can rent something for 7 days. There's rental by the hour. And then right after that, there's a big jump to financing or leasing a vehicle, right? Which typically on the dealership level, it's 36 months or above. So now if you think about it, there's 7 days and there's 36 months and there's nothing in the middle.
Got it.
And we feel the market's going to slowly transition where when people slowly start letting go of their vehicles, they'll still need vehicles long term.
Right.
And that's where we feel models like ours are going to make a big dent in the whole entire space.
Definitely. I'll definitely expand on what you just said, and we'll talk about what the future of mobility looks like. But before that, I'd like to say that it's very fascinating what you just talked about. It's incredible to see how Rome is addressing these shifts in the transportation landscape. Now, just following up on that, what do you think are the biggest challenges that traditional car ownership models will face in the coming years?
Absolutely. So the biggest one we feel is the cost of ownership, right? We get this all the time. So when customers or businesses apply at Rome, a lot of times, they ask us, they're like, why would I pay this much for your service when I can have my car payments $400 or $500, right? And that inherently is how people think about cars. It's just their monthly payment. But the cost of ownership is actually your monthly payment, your auto insurance, your maintenance, registration. By the time you add all that up, almost half the consumers misunderstand, like they underestimate how much they're actually paying for their car, right? So recently, over the last 3 years, the cost of ownership has gone up significantly. Every year, car manufacturers have been raising their prices, right? COVID, we saw a huge shortage of used vehicles and even new vehicles on the road.
Right.
And as a result, some people are paying, almost 25-30% above sticker prices. So the cost of ownership has been creeping up. Insurance rates are on the rise, right? I mean, look at Mississauga, Brampton, all the GTA cities, like they're just, the insurance prices are probably one of the highest in North America. Right. So when you add up all these factors, we're seeing a general shift where people are now considering, is it worth for me to have a car parked in my driveway and, where I'm paying so much money? And Turo just conducted this massive survey in Toronto and basically found that almost 40% of Canadians are really thinking about letting go of their cars. That's what they found. And half of those 40% are thinking about permanently not having a car in their house.
So staying on this statistic, on your point is, if you could just mention, what are the reasons do you think that people are already having this mind shift?
Yeah, so as I said, last 3 years, people have seen that. There's this general stat in OEMs, car manufacturers, where they know that a car is only used for 5% of its life. Every car manufacturer knows it's a widely known stat. So it's parked in your driveway, right? So during COVID, a lot of people, there was this work from home mandate, and now it's there to stay, right? A lot of people, a lot of companies aren't really expecting employees to come back. So that need for having a vehicle in your driveway has really gone away over the last 3 years, along with the fact that the cost of a car has gone up, insurance gone up. So all the prices have slowly creeped up. And because there's so many different options available in the market now, consumers are just questioning again, why should I have this heavy piece of metal parked in my driveway when, if I need to Uber or Lyft to, for an event, or if I'm going out, I can use that. Or if I need something a bit longer term, then, companies like Rome are kind of emerging worldwide. So there's a lot more options for them in the market. And that's why there's this question now coming up in terms of why it's important.
I'd agree with you here because, earlier it used to be having a car or having 3 cars parked in your
That's
drive.
right.
It used to be a status symbol, right?
Exactly.
But as we're moving forward, if we talk about sustainability, if we talk about, the environment, I think making the right choices are very important. And I think Rome is playing a very big factor in helping people change this mindset slowly. Dear listeners, did you know that over 80% of Canadians rely on cars for daily commuting? With new models like subscriptions, the future of mobility is more accessible than ever before. Let's dive deeper into this game changing approach. Let's talk about and let's explore why car subscriptions are set to become a standalone category in the coming industry, right? Because that's what you predicted as well. Now, car subscriptions are carving out their own niche, right? They're offering flexibility that bridges the gap between rentals and ownerships.
That's right.
Now, why do you believe, Apoorv, that the car subscription model will emerge as a category of its own?
Yeah. So one of the trends, along with the cost of ownership rising, that we're also seeing is people are just generally demanding, more flexibility, right? They want more options. So before it used to, we call it car usership internally in the company, right? Ownership is turning into usership. And what that means is more individuals are looking at the vehicle as a means to go around, right? So one of the things that we see all the time within Rome is customers they're repeating every year, right? So they come back and they see that kids are coming back from university in the summer. They need an extra vehicle, better than buying. They're like, you know what? Let's just get a car from Rome for this time frame, and it fulfills their purpose. So for us, the trend that we're seeing is in the market, just like you rent and just like you used to lease or finance, there's a general trend where consumers are just looking for shorter options that are flexible, that don't lock them into long-term commitments, right? And as people get more comfortable with this idea, you're going to see this model really expand worldwide. So Europe is actually always a good use case because this model is widely adopted there. It's growing at a faster pace in North America. So I would say like in the next 5 years, you're going to see more and more companies enter the space, but it'll be a category on its own, right? And we never, there was a car subscription 1.0 5 years ago, right? Where a lot of car manufacturers came out with like BMW had a service where you can rent any vehicle, during the weekday and SUV on the weekend.
Right.
Porsche still has it's a service called Porsche Passport. It's the same thing. You can drive a Panamera or a 911 whenever you need it. But what they realize is that people actually don't care about the specific brand. What they care about is the utility, right? So
and the experience.
Right? Like, do I need an SUV because it's a winter and I don't feel comfortable driving a sedan? Do I need a 7-seater because I have family coming in? So generally what we're seeing is utility matters more than the actual brand. And that's even more true with millennials, right? The new generation, they do not care about car brands whatsoever. So when you combine these two things, like that's where we see car subscriptions becoming a category on its own, right? And it's here to stay. I've been at this for about 10 years now, and every year it's been, there's new companies coming and there's new models that are redefining how subscriptions are looked at.
Right. Very well articulated, I'd say. And, simply put, it's just that if you buy a car, you're stuck with it in your garage,
That's
right?
right.
You can't change it. You can't do any modifications unless you spend a large chunk of dollars on it, right? But with this, you get the option to choose and be free as you want. So again, kudos to Rome for creating such an option for the consumers. And also your perspective, it's pretty compelling, I'd say. It's clear that Rome is bringing unparalleled value to this ever-evolving industry. Apoorv, now on top of your mind, can you share any examples of business clients that Rome has worked with previously or
Absolutely.
currently, and also just explain it to our listeners, how have they exactly benefited from your services, the businesses?
Yeah, sure. So without going into specific names, like
Right.
industry wise, we have some of the biggest Hollywood studios using our platform,
Mhm.
right? And end of the day, like a vehicle is a vehicle, right? Whether it's a Toyota or a BMW or any brand. So we're not really providing new types of vehicles, but the way we've built the service from start to finish, it's all digital, right? And there's a lot of data being collected from the cars. So I'll give you an example. One of our studios, they have an ESG mandate from head office to reduce the carbon footprint of every production that's being produced in Ontario. And for everyone listening, Ontario is actually the second biggest. I don't want to say state, but province, like location wise, out of Hollywood, out of California, where movies are being made these days. So Ontario is a very big destination. So even companies like Amazon, Netflix, they're all investing hundreds of millions of dollars into big studios here. So as these companies start producing here, they have mandates to lower emissions.
Mhm.
So when they started using Roam, for them, it was a very easy way to get, first of all, fleets on demand, right? They were able to pick the vehicles from our site. It was all online, delivered to their doorstep. And the biggest thing was all the data that we've collected, we're able to tell them if the fleets are, what emission levels are being produced during that specific production for the vehicles that they've taken.
Mhm.
And it helps match it up with their internal ESG mandates, right? So our software that we built in the back, that's what we feel is a big differentiator between us and a typical rental or a leasing company out there, right? And again, because it's a flexible model, there's no long-term commitments. This is a perfect use case. Any type of business that requires vehicles on a short-term basis, right?
Right.
8 to 12 months, our model fits in perfectly, right? So studios, last mile delivery companies. So,
Mhm.
if you even think about UPS and FedEx, majority of their fleets are actually rented out, right? They own their own freights and airplanes and bigger transportation mediums. But like when you see some of those vans that are pulling up in your driveway, those are
Right.
mostly rented out. So there's a lot of use cases that we're actively going after, but those are the ones that came up to mind right away.
Nice. Now, you mentioned the subscription model here, right?
Yep.
Now, expanding on that, can you just walk us through the journey of how, from, when a customer calls you or when they
Yep.
reach your office or whatever, what is the journey like from there till the time they, pick up their car, and also
Sure.
the after experience after that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all online. So you go to our site, you sign up for an account. So compared to a typical rental or leasing, we actually, when you upload your license, we actually do very quick background checks just to make sure that whoever is coming through, they have previous driving records.
Mhm.
So once you get approved in the platform, it takes a few minutes. Someone from our team will personally reach out to understand how long you're looking for the vehicle, what your needs are,
Right.
and almost I call it a white glove service, like
Mhm.
help you figure out what vehicle you need.
Right.
And then based on what you end up selecting, you pay online and the vehicle is actually delivered to your doorstep, right? So
Mhm.
as a consumer, as a business, you're never leaving the comfort of your home or your office.
Right.
It's coming to you. And once you have the vehicle, it's very easy to switch your plan, or maybe you want to add winter tires, or you have some accessories that upfittings that need to be added, or you need to change your vehicle. It's all online. So you never have to physically come into our, there's no brick and mortar.
Right.
It's actually, our office is actually all our employees, and sometimes, customers will come in, but usually it's mainly
It's through online.
It's all online. That's right.
Right. So I think it's the perfect epitome of convenience, I'd say.
Yep.
Now, I was just doing some research before this podcast,
Yep.
and I came across this interesting stat. I'll just share it with you.
Yep.
So, studies show that 60% of millennials now prefer flexible car ownership options over traditional models. So 60% of the millennials are already shifted towards this
Yep.
mindset, right? Now, Apoorv, my question to you is, how does this evolving preference, it align with Rome's long-term strategy, and what opportunities or what kind of challenges do you, foresee in adapting to this shift? Because the reason why I ask this question is because a lot of people are still hesitant towards moving to a new thing,
Yep.
right? So
That's right.
what would you suggest to them, or what would you say to them that helps them change their mind?
If you think about human psychology, right? I remember when I was growing up, that was a time when we used to go buy like VHS or DVDs to watch movies,
Right.
right? Or you used to buy songs or download them sometimes.
Right.
And then we all shifted to this like model where everything's accessible and in one spot, and you never think about ownership anymore. So that mindset is now shifting to all other parts of life, right? Even housing, there's a lot of models coming out where people are now thinking about house ownership, but specifically vehicles, which is the second biggest purchase of your life. This trend definitely helps Rome, because right now our biggest challenge as a company is we're small, we're not that well known, so a lot of people will come online, they'll be like, is this real, like how does this work, right? And once they actually go through the whole process and get into a vehicle and they get comfortable, they realize that this is actually a very viable option, right? You don't need to be locked in for 3 years or longer. You don't need to have something parked in your driveway. You can actually just have something for 4 months or 6 months or whenever in your life you need it, right? And that shift, we feel like all the car manufacturers, everyone's closely eyeing it, because that's what's going to drive how they develop vehicles and how they sell them at their dealerships as well.
Wow. I think with these compelling advantages, Rome is revolutionizing mobility and paving the way for the future. Building a business in challenging times isn't easy.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, we're in the business of you.
We're here to help you plug in,
connect, and recharge.
make an impression,
and meet with confidence.
With 19 brands built for business,
your business gets even more rewarding.
With an award-winning loyalty program at 6,000 IHG hotels and resorts worldwide.
Welcome back. Let's dive into the resilience and creativity behind Rome's remarkable growth. Up next, we'll explore how they've tackled these challenges in an unpredictable market. So, every innovative idea, it encounters challenges, right? Particularly in a fast-paced industry like automotive. Now, Rome launched in a challenging economic environment, as you mentioned, right? Can you share, Apoorv, how did you navigate those difficulties to achieve consistent growth?
Absolutely. So, funny story, the day we launched, Doug Ford announced a lockdown. So there was a curfew, and
wow, on the same day?
It was the next day. We bought our first set of vehicles and we were going to launch, and then
oh my God,
the curfew started, and I was like, okay, well, this is going to end before it started, right? And things improved, but to answer your question, like we had headwinds after headwinds, right? Like when you talk about COVID-19, car shortage was very real. So even though used car prices went up, all our vehicles are brand new. We buy them from manufacturers, so all our allocations from manufacturers went away. And cars, cars like Toyota Corollas, which were like standing in lots, were now back ordered 8 months, right? So for us as a business, we couldn't source cars fast enough.
Right.
Number one. And the other thing was because car rental prices, I don't know if you remember during COVID, they almost tripled, right? Everyone was trying to make fast money. And even at dealership level, cars were being sold 25, 30% above. That naturally shifted a lot of focus to us. A lot of customers actually, there's an article in the CBC and we didn't even know this article existed. There was a woman who was using Enterprise, like one of the car rental services, and she was being charged almost $4,000 or $5,000 a month. She discovered us just by searching, and it was, for her, it was like a matter of like survival, right? Because a lot of people are living dollar to dollar at this point. So a lot of attention shifted to us during that time. So we were really able to understand what our customers actually looking for in the service, right? And that's why when I say the actual car brand and the car doesn't matter as much as the utility does.
Right.
That's something we've seen over the last 4 years, right? And the other thing is when you launch at a time when everything is going against you as a business, I think you naturally just become, everything that you build is built for that time. So when things get better, it's almost smooth sailing. So I would say as a business, we launched during a very difficult time, but it's made our operations a lot more efficient. We're very cost sensitive, but we still tend to focus on the core needs of the customer, which is what evolved during that time when we started. Right. So yeah, used car prices, interest rates went up. Like I can name 4 or 5 things specifically in the automotive industry that really, worked against us. But as I said, 2025, things are changing. So that's why we're very excited.
Definitely, that's a very inspiring story of resilience, I'd say. It's amazing how adversity has shaped Roam into a stronger company, definitely. Now, Apoorv, I'm sure you must have learned a couple of lessons from this entire journey, right? Yep. From your experiences, what lessons did you learn? And why I'm asking this again is because of the listeners, because listeners are a mix of, people who have just started up, who are just investing into startups, or maybe they've been an entrepreneur since a lot of years.
Yep.
Now, the thing is that crisis, it doesn't knock at your door and come, right? As you said, in your experience, you face something that people usually prepare for in the coming years.
That's right.
Now, what lessons, 3 lessons, if you could just point out, that you took away from this so that other people learn from your mistakes and don't repeat them?
Okay, absolutely. So the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to share what you're building. I think there's, especially in technology, there's this thought that, if I share my idea, someone's going to steal it or someone else will launch it. That's not true, because the more people you share it with, the more feedback you're going to end up getting. Right. And that can shape the trajectory of the company. Right. So I think no one's as invested and motivated as you are for your own idea. So what I always tell young entrepreneurs whenever I meet them is don't be afraid to share and get feedback. Right. This is not it's the more feedback you get, the more people you meet, the better you'll be able to package what you're trying to sell out there.
Right.
The second thing I would say is, when you're launching, team really matters. Surround yourself with really solid advisors, right? I would say there's this concept of self-made, you hear this all the time, self-made billionaire or self-made entrepreneur. We're a collection of all the people we meet in our lives, right? So I would say whether it's BrainStation, whether it's the company in Brazil that I did or here, it's always been the advisors that I've had, the investors, the people that have helped us grow this company. Even if you think about your employees, right? They're putting all their life into helping you build this, right? So just make sure that you surround yourself with like-minded people, because that makes the journey easier and also, again, helps you be guided in the right direction.
It gives you a little extra push as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's this book that I always recommend people read. It's called Never Eat Alone, right? And the whole story behind that book is that the more people you connect with in your industry or around you, and the more even if you make it a habit that, once a week I'm going to meet someone new and I just want to get their insight, whether it's industry related or not, it's just going to help you grow as an individual, but it also expands your network, because networking effect has a major, impact on whether you're going to be successful or not, for sure.
Definitely. Again, very well articulated, and the lessons, I'm sure the listeners will gain valuable insights from them. Now, conquering obstacles, it's a defining feature of true success, and Roam's remarkable journey stands as a powerful proof of this fact. Now, as we wrap up, Apoorv, we'll take a look at what's next for this innovative company. Now, with a solid foundation in place, Roam is poised to pursue even greater accomplishments and make a significant impact in the coming future. Now, what can we expect from Roam in the coming years, particularly with the with your upcoming marketplace that's launching and the subscribe to own model as well? So, what's new?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the high demand items that we've seen from customers and businesses, hey, we love this vehicle. Can we actually buy it? Right? Because again, our model will never replace ownership. It's there as an alternative. So naturally, there's a lot of consumers who, they'll drive the car and they're like, we love this. We want to be able to buy it. So we realized that this model has other opportunities, specifically for individuals that are maybe looking to build up their credit score, like newcomers, Or people, sometimes even if you think about insurance, sometimes you get a ticket or some kind of bad record and it drives your insurance costs up. So people just want to look for an alternative at that time. So what we've noticed is there's multiple use cases where people want to use our service and then eventually buy the vehicle that they're driving. So we feel that's going to be a very popular product with consumers. So we're in the process of launching it in Q2 this year. And that's definitely going to be a game changer for subscription specifically, because that's one psychological factor that stands in people's way, right? They always question, like, why would I pay for a car for 6 months and not get to own it? Right. And if someone wants to own it, like, by all means, like, we'll help you purchase it. So that's one area that we definitely we feel there's going to be a lot of intake. And then in terms of expansion, like, we are looking to expand Canada wide. So last 3.5, 4 years, we've been primarily concentrated in Ontario. And now we're looking to go across provinces because we've had a lot of demand from, provinces like BC and Quebec. So we do plan on expanding geographically this year.
Definitely. All these plans, they sound super exciting. And the road ahead for Rome, it's full of opportunities and it looks pretty bright. Now, stay inspired and as you embrace your change and innovations in your own ventures as well. So this is something that I'd like to tell to all my listeners. Dear friends, innovation often thrives in the face of adversity. Let Apoorv's story inspire you to think creatively and turn challenges into opportunities. Now, before we wrap up and before we let Apoorv go, one last question for you, Apoorv.
Yep.
What's the one final advice that you'd like to give to our listeners? What should they do? And especially if someone wants to make a mark in such an industry, what advice would you give to them?
So I wouldn't say like automotive is a very tough industry.
Right.
Honestly, like last 10 years has been a big learning curve. But look, generally the biggest advice I would say is if you have a hunch for a business idea and you feel that it's a problem that you generally feel it's a very deep problem that you have,
Right.
the chances are that others probably have the exact same problem. Right. So when I look at back at my journey, BrainStation started because it was my problem. I graduated from business school, wanted to become technical, ended up starting a school that allows people to become developers. Right. When you think about Rome and this whole model, this was my own problem. I didn't want to own a car. I was traveling quite a lot, needed something for 4 months or 6 months, and I was paying a lot of money. I was like, there has to be something cheaper than me renting a car. So that's what kind of led me to my idea. So what I would say is if you have a hunch, and if you feel you're having a problem, that's why I said share it with as many people as you can, because when you realize that it's a common problem, you have
And you're not alone in the journey.
And you're not alone. There you go. You have a business idea. Now you have an actual foundation to start off of.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Apoorv, for doing
welcome.
this and sharing your insights with our listeners. I'm sure they must have gained a lot of value from this, and we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Today's episode highlighted the transformative impact of innovation in the mobility sector, thanks to Apoorv Gupta's inspiring vision and leadership. From the rise of car subscriptions to tackling economic challenges, we explored how Rome is revolutionizing vehicle access for consumers and businesses alike. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, RBC, UPS, IHG Hotels and Resorts, and Google for their ongoing support in empowering small businesses. To learn more about this podcast and access valuable insights, visit CanadianSME.ca. Until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, and keep striving for success. Goodbye for now.